So here is a quick little tutorial on how I colorize grayscales in Procreate using the curves function. Now everyone is really familiar with the hue saturation. Well, I can't really show you because this is in grayscale that I just converted. Let me revert this back. So everyone is familiar with the hue and saturation slider. You can brighten it up, desaturate it, or you can slide around and change the hues, but it really doesn't have as much control. Like when you slide left and right, you can't really get nuances or, pump color into specific places you may want. So my favorite way of working with color adjustments and doing my final corrections or moving from a grayscale to basically like what would function as a gradient map in Procreate is going to the curves. And so let me explain. You have your gamma, your red channel, your green channel, and your blue channel. And I can definitely show you how these differences would work in color. It's honestly all the same, straightforward, but your gamma basically adjusts your values, especially if you're working on a grayscale version of an image like this lower. Everything to the left is your darks, everything to the right is your light colors, and everything in the middle, like these are your mid values. You can lift up areas of brightness, areas of darkness. It's kind of just intuitive, but basically everything on the left kind of corresponds to your dark. So if I raise this really high, it made my darkest areas basically white. So the higher up on this curve, the more white, the lower down, the more black. But the cool thing with this is even if you're working in grayscale, because I know in Photoshop, if you're color altering, or maybe it works the same with curves, but basically if you go to red, now we're on the red channel. When you go up, you add more red. When you go down, it like negates it, so it makes it more blue. Some of these you just have to like mess around with until you see what they do. But for example, like I can add a red to the lights, and if I bring it down here, I'm adding blue to the cools, and they transition seamlessly with all the values in the grayscale. So it really works like a gradient map. And since you have so much control with the curves, you can add things in different places. Like I can go to the blue channel and really control. You can see where I'm moving these different like places, how I can decide in what value key I am adding and changing. Like this is only changing and adding a little bit of green to the darkest areas. Green channel, like sometimes they're not like super straightforward. Like it's a green channel, but when you like toggle things, it can make it like you mean the blue channel, and sliding it down will make it green. Basically, like the higher you go on the graph, the more of that color you're adding, and the lower you go on that graph, that you're negating that color. So this is like a fun way to just kind of control and really play with your colors. This is how I do a lot of my color studies and quick things. So you can see now how going from grayscale to color, we just added all this color here. You didn't have to think about blending, and now it's a lot easier to just open a new layer, pick a paintbrush that you like, and then just start, color picking and scribbling on top of it. And it kind of really saves you time instead of painting over everything, and it gives you a lot more color vibrancy than just, using a grayscale layer and colorizing over. I always think that looks really muddy. So, whenever you're doing grays and then you say you want to add color and you go to hue, and let's say you want to make this dragon like red or something. It just doesn't have that same kind of nuance and change that you can control. Like you can see how very monochromatic and flat this kind of is, where if you wanted to make this dragon red using curves, you can totally mess with that and really play with it. So, you can pump cools in the shadows and really just mess around. So like that will be a lot more interesting and vibrant than just colorizing over your grayscale because of the way these colors transition. And then if you want, you can always like, colorize over it and then like adjust areas. Like maybe you want some more, maybe you want some more red over here and you want some more blue in these areas. So I definitely think using the curves is a very good way to set a base for you to start painting over and using more adjustment layers. Or for color adjustments, like let me just copy all of this. Whenever I finish a painting, I copy all and paste it to a new layer, and then I tend to adjust my colors to however I like them best once I'm done. So let me show you how gamma can like affect things on like a color image. Like it affects values predominantly, not so much the color if you're using gamma. So think of gamma as like your values. And then all the different channels again, you can like cool things down. Like going up, I'm adding more red. Going down, I'm removing more red. Here you can totally like invert the warm cool interplay of like shadows, so now you can have like warm shadows and cool light. And you can just really mess around with it. You can like add purple and only the midtones and like remove it from like other places. It's always really fun to just mess around with all these. So you can end up really quickly having a lot of different color iterations of paintings in literally seconds. And that's kind of how I do so many of my painting color studies instead of actually taking the time to do them. So anyway, hope this helps. I know that when I first started using Procreate, I was really wondering how I can do gradient maps and things like that because there wasn't really an option for it. And the best and easiest way that I honestly like better than using actual gradient maps in Clip Studio or Photoshop is this method right here using curves. And since both Photoshop and Clip Studio also have the curves tools, it should work about the same. Hope that helps.